Okay, I've started recording. You can go now.
Hello, everybody. This is your captain speaking, and welcome back to another CCTV broadcast.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
Wow. That was so much more energy than I possess right now.
Nick, you're gonna have to carry us in terms of energy tonight. Like,
Got it.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Easy peasy. Kelly, it's gonna be a great night. Right? Right?
Right, Nick. I work at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
We better get this shit over with, huh?
Yeah.
So where's that energy, Kelly?
I mean, I'm currently making tea to ensure that I sleep tonight. So, like...
oh,
No,
you'll
you need to
sleep.
drink coffee to make sure that you don't sleep.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, being that Kelly has to be up tomorrow, why don't we get started?
Yes. Okay.
Fuck.
Would you like to give us our prompt, dear?
I would love to, but I don't know the prompt.
I sent it to you, albeit late. I sent it to you really late.
I was making a joke because I responded to deer. That
I
was
got
the
it.
joke.
Anyway, so Nick, this is actually a conversation you and I end up having a lot.
Yeah, and I was thinking a lot about how I was going to respond to it.
Particularly because our mother, God bless
And
her
father.
soul, they don't think that video games can be a good medium for storytelling, lesson learning, or even just something as simple as complex thought. Our parents kind of believe that, and this is a very large majority of people who don't play video games, they think that video games are just mindless wastes of time, and there's nothing positive to be gained from them other than killing time. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. You know, how that is
Incorrect.
Arguably 100% incorrect.
Not really arguably. There's a lot of evidence backing up that it is very much incorrect, and that many people have been affected positively off of their video game experiences. In fact, we are, living proof of that. I think we discussed on our first podcast about how much these stories have impacted us and their video games.
Yes.
That was our first podcast.
It was definitely yes.
So it does. It there's a lot of things from these games that really
so what Nick is saying is listen to our first podcast and then get back to us.
Well, yes, you should have been listening to the other podcast. So if you're listening to this and skipping ahead, you're cheating. Go back.
My mom subscribed to our YouTube channel.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go back.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I actually start, because I actually prepared a lot.
You seem like you're ready to go, so I'm gonna stir my tea.
So the reason why I believe, and it's arguable whether or not video games or other media are like the best way to tell stories, because all of the mediums have something good about it.
Yeah, there are benefits and drawbacks to each.
Reading allows you for more of a personal interpretation. You can vividly see things your own way. People never imagine the same characters of the same book the same way. So it's more, books are more personal, it seems. While movies, we all see the same thing. There's nothing left to the imagination, but we're actually seeing the story unfold. There's no imagination involved. I mean, I guess there is, but what I'm saying is like that what you're seeing is what you're getting. There's no divergence.
I think the difference is books leave a lot of the specific character and environmental traits up to the reader, whereas as video games and movies and TV shows provide you visual context free of your imagination.
Yes. However, what I believe that video games have over movies and TV shows is the player input.
Yeah.
Humans learn based off of their own experiences. And the fact that game developers can add in player influencing to the game to change the game makes a lasting impression on that person, because each experience will be different. There's actually a term for this that I studied called game dynamic. It's different from game mechanics, because while mechanics remain stagnant and they are a constant throughout the game, game dynamics literally refers to the amount of change that can happen throughout the game. So with one person, it could be very different to how the other player played, and they would have two different experiences with the same game. The less dynamic a game is, the more linear a story can get. It's either just a very simple story-driven game or just a game like Galaga. There's a singular objective. While more dynamic game...
Sorry.
Huh?
What, dude?
Nothing, never mind. I was saying this man is playing Galaga.
This man is playing Galaga.
We wouldn't notice,
But
we did. That's one of my favorite lines from that entire franchise. Anyway, go ahead.
It's a good. Anyways, while the more dynamic a game gets, the more diverse an experience can get. And when you get a game with high dynamics, with storytelling, the lasting impressions could be more significant. I talked about this with Mass Effect, because Mass Effect, it unfolds in different ways depending on how you play it. It is massive in terms of dynamic. And you could be playing a completely genocide run because you want to, or you could play and do whatever you want. However, what leaves the most impressions is watching what you decide unfold, whether or not it was a good or bad decision. Because say you were doing the best you could, but you made a mistake and you lost a team member.
That hurts.
That is something that hurts, because you did not intend for that to happen.
And then people in your chat who are watching you play their favorite game start yelling at you.
How you could have saved them? Yes.
About how you could have saved them.
But now in your sort of headcanon, they died in that story because that was the impact that you put on the game.
And they died in your story. Your version of the story had that character die at that point.
Yeah.
And that truly sticks with you, because one person may have gotten the perfect ending, while you just happened to do one small mistake that you didn't realize early in Mass Effect 1, which led to a death in Mass Effect 2.
Yep.
And that hurt. That hurts you beyond compare, because that's not something that you intended to happen. You can watch. What makes games for me a better medium is you watch the consequences happen. Whether or not they are good or bad, you are immediately shown the consequences to your act, and that makes a story way more engaging when your choices actually have influence. And that's what sticks with you.
Yeah, it's similar to Undertale.
Yes, very much
same
so.
Concept. Yeah, because I remember playing Undertale the first. I made a mistake. If people have not played Undertale, I won't.
Kelly, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Okay, well, I didn't know what to do, and I panicked, and I killed Toriel, and I'm a terrible person. And
everyone did that. Everyone did.
And
Kelly, everyone and their mother messed up their first time through Undertale.
Yeah.
You're
and
okay.
Then what was even worse is, so I think video games are also unique. Building off of what Nick said, I think everything that he said is true. Plus, video games are unique, especially if they are being experienced by multiple people at the same time in the same room. Much like you would watch a movie with people. If you play video games with people, it's a completely different experience from...
That's very true.
Like, so on my YouTube channel, there are a couple of videos where Gio was in the background. And I would say that having somebody else there watching you play a specific game, especially a game that they have already played, causes you to overanalyze every single decision you ever make. Like, I overthink everything in my life anyway. But, like, when you are, like, there are very few times in real life where you suddenly stop and think, like, this is a decision that is going to change the outcome for me immediately in a catastrophically huge way. Like, I think video games provide humans with that with that cataclysmic choice so often that like we suddenly know how to deal with it, I feel like. And especially if somebody is standing there watching you do it. I don't know, that doesn't make very much sense when I say it, but like it makes sense
No,
in my
that makes
head.
sense.
Like it's giving humans adaptability to choice almost.
Can I add one thing before you
Yeah.
go, G?
Oh, we're just discussing. It's not
Yeah, we're
necessarily
just going.
turn-based.
This isn't like turns. This
Okay.
is just...
Generally we did turns the last time, so I was just making sure. To add on to that, with playing with people, you don't always just learn lessons by the story of the game itself. To be 100% honest, playing the multiplayer version of Halo with my brothers on a couch was one of the best experiences of my whole life.
Yeah.
There was a lot of lessons about competitiveness and about I'm serious. The
No, I know
playing-
you're serious. That's what's funny. Like that's yeah.
It's you learn about how to play and how to have fun with each other, and you learn how to just be kids. That's the part where the parents have trouble with, because they see that the multiplayer part and it's like, oh, they're just wasting time.
And they're
But
just killing each other.
that wasting time is bonding experiences.
Yeah.
Those memories that I had playing playing Halo with my brothers was the best part about playing video games. And it pains me to see that all these companies are getting rid of split screen mechanics, because that is the best part about video games. It's the community. You don't just learn life lessons from video games. You learn how to be a fucking community. You sit down with your friends and you shoot the shit for 2.5 hours. And it is the best time of the day. It's the same thing about going to a bar. You can make the same argument. You go to a bar, you get drunk. That's a waste of time. Why would you go and do that? Adults do that all the time. What's the difference about video games? You're just shooting the shit with your friends.
Sometimes literally.
Yeah, and I think like that's a thing that I never really thought of, because like you describe playing video games with your siblings as bonding experiences. I do not have siblings.
But you have a similar experience.
But no, I mean growing up.
Oh.
Like I did not have, but I also didn't come from a family that thought video games were a waste of time. Partly because I never played them, because we had Macs.
I mean, PC didn't really have that many games for a while.
Well, no, but it ran them better than a Mac would.
Yes.
Like regardless of like
you would have at least had like Doom and StarCraft Classic. And
well, so there was a
some
game.
Of the other old ones.
I think my dad has told you about it. There was a game preceding Halo called something like Monolith, but it's not Monolith. But my dad played a hell of a lot of that when I was really little, like 4 or 5. And I don't know why he stopped playing it. I think it's just owned a business at that time, and it wasn't. He felt like he had to work on other things. But my family never discouraged me from playing video games. Like I played puzzle games, but like I also never ever had a bonding experience like that until I was in high school. Like I never had a bonding experience like, and like I feel like honestly I really would have benefited from it. Like I went to my guy friends' houses and they played, COD Zombie. But like no, that was Matthias bringing it over to my house and terrifying the crap out of me with it. That was not a bonding experience. That was a traumatization.
We're eventually gonna play Dead Space.
That was not. That was a hostage situation.
We're eventually gonna play Dead Space. Just
I
so you
know. But I think you're right, Nick. I think parents, some parents, not parents universally. My mom just Snapchatted me. Yikes. I think some parents underestimate how valuable wasting time with people you're close with is, especially with video games.
And so like that's definitely one aspect of it. The building relationships and hanging out. Like my parents still don't understand that online friends can be friends, but that's a whole subsection of what we're talking about that we could spend hours upon hours arguing the legitimacy.
I did get that talk. Like, don't trust anybody you meet on the internet.
Exactly. Our parents told that too, and then they're like, yeah, just take an Uber. It's like, that's literally the exact opposite of what you told me to do when I was a kid. Thanks, I'm 9.
Thanks, I'm not. Okay, well, but
no, wait, I'm in the middle of a thought.
You're not done. I'm sorry.
But like, yeah, there's the whole community aspect of it, and like, just hanging out and spending time together. And like Nick said, it's exactly the same as going to a bar. But then there's like the actual in-game things that you can learn, like the lessons that the stories are actually trying to impart on you, like morals and right and wrong and other potentially life-changing ideals. And so and they appear in games that people don't expect them from. And like, there are some exceptions. Like, I've never played not a Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto game, but Grand Theft Auto in my head falls into that really small, very small subsection of games that are violent just for the sake of violence. And they're just like in my head, an out from society. Like, you can just do whatever you want because it's the opposite of what society tells you to do. And that's fine. That's totally legitimate in of itself. But one of the things that, like, especially our parents griped on was violence. And they're like, there's nothing you can learn from these violent video games. One of the biggest ones was Halo, but the one like right below Halo was Gears of War. And my parents are like, it's so bloody, it's so violent. What could you possibly learn from a game that's primary focus is chainsaw assault rifles? Now, let me tell you a fucking story about how I can learn some fucking lessons from chainsaw assault rifles. First of all, Dom fucking dies.
Dom fucking dies.
Dom fucking died.
While that's a meme and it's hysterical, and I laughed super hard when it was in Badger's video,
it hurt.
That was significant because the entirety of Gears of War is the one of the very, very, very prominent things that the game tells you is that they are brothers in arms. The Gears, the Cogs, are brothers in arms. They are fighting a losing battle, and they're either all together or they're not. That's why they're Gears. They have to work together. They're all cogs in the bigger machine of humanity's survival. Anyway, the tagline for Gears of War 3's release was "Brothers to the End." Now, that was very much foreshadowing that someone wasn't going to make it. But throughout the whole story, you are built, you have this relationship with your squad, your team, and you know, some of them come and go, they have different assignments, but all of them have so much depth and so much character. And you get to Gears of War 3 where things are finally wrapping up, and one of them fucking dies. And you're sitting there like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, he was there from the very first moments of Gears of War 1. And he has been with you all the way until the middle of Gears of War 3. And you're sitting there like, oh my god, I literally just lost one of the closest companions I've had in this story. And like Nick was saying, you're inserted into the story. You take on the role playing video games, and having that happen fucking sucked. And the fact that people boil down a game like Gears of War down to it's just violence with chainsaw guns. Like, no.
Well, at least nowadays, like, I'm not so sure about the new story modes of Gears of War, but at least 1 through 3 had a legitimate story.
See, but then that just comes down to, was the game written well? Because that's another big component. Like, your story can't be compelling, or you can't learn anything from a poorly written story. But that's out of the purview of our argument. We're talking
I-
about lessons you can learn from a story that is written well, and that's with any medium. That's books, that's movies. You can't learn anything from a bad movie or a bad book.
I have another thing to add.
Well, you can learn how to not write movies.
Exactly.
But
but that's
other
not
than
that's
that-
not a lesson you can learn.
Yeah.
Here's something interesting about what video games can, and what us as gamers have done in the field of science, believe it or not. So there's this type of game called a transformational game. It's another thing that I studied. A transformational game, its sole purpose is to, when you finish playing the game, mentally, or no, I guess it's mentally, but it should change the way that a person thinks or acts. So the whole purpose of the game is to convince someone of some sort of view, to teach them some sort of lesson, or to change their personality in some meaningful way.
Yep.
One of the games that came out was called Fold It. Fold It was created by a group of scientists who were fucking stumped on how to figure out what an enzyme could look like. And they gave this game to a bunch of video gamers who solved it in like 2 weeks.
Oh my god.
We wanted to, here's a quote. We wanted to see if human intuition could succeed where automated methods had failed. Remarkably, the gamers generated models good enough for the researchers to refine and within a few days determine the enzyme structure. Equally amazing, surfaces on the molecule stood out as likely targets for drugs to deactivate. Anyways, a group of scientists who couldn't figure out something in their own field created a video game that a bunch of nerds solved their own problem for them.
And I think, like, one of the reasons that I want to be both journalistically and in fiction and poetry is when I sit down to write, I essentially both putting a part of myself out into the world and desperately trying to create a part of the world for someone else. And I think as consumers, as a kid, I think what we're trying to do is, as a child, you are trying to take in desperately as much as you can about the world, so that you, and I mean, not intentionally, but you're trying to, in essence, learn as much as you can. You're trying to take in everything that will prepare you somewhat for adult life. It won't, spoiler alert, but
We can shall try.
But I, like, as a kid, I was desperate to know anything I could about somebody else's life. Like, most of the reason that I have so many books here where I live now and in my parents' place, I have driven Geo half to madness with buying books and not having bookshelves for them. But it's because I desperately want to know people who are not me. I want to know their stories, and I think, and as much as books can do that, I think video games can do that just as well. It gives kids, and I say kids meaning anywhere from 25 to younger, is that it gives us a chance to reach out and touch a part of the world that we cannot as ourselves. Like, I cannot go to Hogwarts. It haunts me every day that I cannot do that. But I sit here clutching my Marauders map mug, staring at my Hermione wand in hatred that I cannot go to Hogwarts, but I can go with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. I cannot go with Commander Shepard to all those different planets. I can't
name a planet. Name a planet.
Earth.
Yeah.
Outside of the Milky Way, or not the Milky Way, the
Outside of the
Sol
Milky
system.
Way?
Outside of the
Specific
Sol
planets.
system. That's a shame.
I know.
Shame
Anyway.
on you.
Jill, I don't even remember, okay? That's
Shame
There.
on you.
Okay, Gio, give me a
There's the
planet.
Citadel. Okay, the Citadel is pretty much a fucking planet.
I can't go. I cannot see a Reaper in.
Oh fuck! I don't. I can't. Gio, now I'm trying to think of fucking
What's
planets.
the Krogan homeworld?
I don't remember.
Krogan homeworld is Tachanka.
Okay, wait, but okay, hold on. So, but I can't go to those places.
Sadala. Is that one of them?
I don't know.
Planet Sadala?
I can't go.
You hypocrite!
I know most of the homeworlds. Like Thessia is.
Okay. Anyways, Kelly.
Yeah, I can't go to those places. I can't know those people. I can't do those things. Like I can't climb that mountain in Celeste. As myself, but I can through a video game or through a book or through a movie or through a TV show. And I think like that is the crux of why kids are so drawn to media like that. It gives them a chance to experience things that like
that are
they
physically
know
impossible.
that they can't do. Like that's why so many kids hero worship athletes. Like they're told their whole lives, like, oh, maybe you could do that. But like they know. They know that like Michael Jordan is one of a kind. And maybe they'll never get to be Michael Jordan, but they could be close. And so they're gonna watch him and like take in as much of that as they can. And like maybe sitting in front of the TV for hours and hours watching NBA is a waste of time to anyone else, but it's not to them.
Exactly.
Like it's life experience. You can't put it on a resume and you can't get a job with it. And like, I'm having a really hard time articulating it, but like it's life experience to me. It's life experience to you guys, obviously. Like Halo itself is an entire experience alone. I think people underestimate how much like kids need that exposure to things that they can't necessarily say that they need to have, but they need to have. And like GTA, nobody needs to have that kind of exposure. But having actually played a small amount of GTA 5,
it's tension releasing.
It's tension releasing, and also the thing about GTA is they don't market it as this. They don't market it like Mass Effect. They don't market it like, a game that's supposed to be deep and emotionally involving.
No, it is. You grab a gun and you shoot hookers.
It's like it's literally, and I think like, yeah, if that's a release mechanism, I could see how like you probably wouldn't want your 7-year-old playing it. But like your 15 son is like, he's fine. Like unless you have sincere issue, like unless there are other factors about him or her, or your daughter playing GTA 5, like I genuinely wouldn't worry about it. Like
the other thing of where
I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm not gonna worry about it. Sorry.
Well, it's also stupid how people assume that because a game is violent means that you will become violent by proxy.
That's a whole different can of worms. That's not even where we're at today.
I read a blog post about it.
That's another separate can of worms about male fantasy and the sexualization of characters. Yeah. Well, that is a whole.
Like I said,
how males are arguably just as sexualized as women, but everyone only gets mad at them.
That's other can of worms. Other can of worms.
And like I've said, that would be something that I would like to see happen in video games, is like less sexualization of everything.
I could care less. I just find it hypocritical. I don't care. Yeah. I just find it stupid that people only care about one side of the spectrum, and it's like, okay, but what about the other side? I don't know. That's a whole other can of worms.
We'll jump into that later. I think that's a good topic that we'll definitely talk about. But that's not why we're here today. We're talking about
story. And the impacts and the benefit of making a story in a video game.
Well, not just the story, but video games themselves. Like like you were talking about, like just the community aspect, the hanging out, the laughs, the memories. Like there are memories from sitting on the couch playing Halo together that I still remember. I remember playing Infected, and I shot Tommaso like mid grenade explosion, and his whole body
and his
fragmented.
Neck fucked out. I remember.
His player model broke, and it was just scattered all over the place. That was hysterical. Well, like, yeah, his player model exploded as I shot it, and so something happened where all of the joints broke, and so he was just a mess of twisted limbs.
So
it was hysterical.
Funny.
It was so funny. And I remember, like, we took turns sitting on top of sand trap with sniper rifles trying to shoot mongies at the running around the edge of the map.
That's right, we did. And
then
know, when we made race games,
we build our custom maps, and like all the hours we put into trying to get those to work. That's important. That's significant. Those are good memories. Those are positive experiences that should not at all be
at that point
you're
treating what people don't understand is when you give sort of multiplayer games to these kids is that you're pretty much giving them Legos. There's not really a difference. When you give a child Legos, you're telling the kid to let their imagination run wild. And that's what most kids will do. They'll build something, they'll throw it at someone. It's a good experience all around.
They'll hit their brothers with it. They'll make a big Lego sword.
Their mom will step on them.
Yeah, and then they made actual slippers for Legos now. Like Lego brand Lego slippers.
It's really funny. They're kind of dumb.
And they're also like there's some talk of them making Legos that are like squishable. So like they still stack, but if like force is pressed down on them, they compress so that like
dumb.
they don't snap. Yeah.
No.
Anyways, when you give a child this sort of multiplayer game like Halo with a building aspect, you're giving them Legos. You're telling the kid to let your imagination run wild and have fun. And that's a positive. That's the same thing. It's the same thing.
In the day, like systems like Forge were not existent. And in games still today, a lot of games don't have Forge. Like, sure, there's like community modders for games, but there's a lot of the times not integrated custom game building mechanics, which is unfortunate because you're right. Those were Forge was revolutionary in terms of Forge paired with file share was revolutionary in terms of the custom stuff that came out of the Halo community. And I know like there's custom maps for like Celeste and custom maps for like CS, and Gary's mod is all sandboxy. That's a whole other creative aspect to games. And we haven't gotten to like skills. Like we're at like memories and lessons and stuff like that, but legitimate skills that you can learn, like
hand-eye coordination,
timing, prioritizing,
reaction timing, monetary value.
I was literally about to say something, but I forgot.
Teamwork.
Communication.
Communication, definitely.
Like literal, real life skills that you can learn.
Destroy a platinum player who doesn't know how to avoid Capcan traps.
Woo!
But like
one of my favorite things is that the Air Force trains their pilots in a fucking video game.
Yeah.
Before they get to go off the ground, they play a simulation, which is a fucking video game, for them to learn the skills required to pilot an actual aircraft. Because you know what? It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
You can get valuable skills. In fact, that is exactly what a transformational game is. That's what most simulations are. Like the Air Force uses to train their pilots. That's the like true definition of a transformational game, really. You're trying to get a skill or something out of the game.
God.
Which a game doesn't have to be based,
That doesn't have to be the
built
sole
for
intention, but you
transformational
can
purposes.
still learn.
You can
it.
still learn stuff from the game, like we talked about, like communication, hand-eye coordination, reaction timing, general
Prioritization,
problem solving, puzzle solving, spatial awareness.
Sometimes even like physics-based issues you can kind of figure out in video games, especially now with virtual fucking reality.
That's right.
Like, let's just take a game that I obsessed about for
Beat
a couple months. Beat Saber is a fucking great example.
Hand-eye coordination, rhythm, exercise. You build up a sweat playing fucking Beat Saber.
But like a game like StarCraft 2, first of all, not only just to control your units do you have to have phenomenal hand-eye coordination, but you have to prioritize tasks. What is most important at this moment? Foresight. What is going to happen in the near future, and what am I going to do to deal with it?
Yeah.
Order of operations. How do I get from point A to point B with the least resistance and without dying?
Yeah.
And that's
fighting
just
games
StarCraft.
Fighting games, from personal experience, teach you mainly consistency and how to mentally battle someone. Because what fighting games isn't just about pressing the buttons and trying to do the damage. At a certain level, when you know exactly what's going to happen, it's how to trick your opponent to make them do something you want. It's mentally manipulating.
Psychologically, like you can get like the term or phrase getting in someone's head. You know, that happens in all sports ever, and video games. Outplaying your opponents is a huge part of a lot of competitive video games. And that takes a lot of skill to understand the game on such a fundamental level that you can predict what they're going to do next and punish them for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
To get a competitive edge. It like we could talk for hours about the different things that video games can have a positive impact on someone.
Doki Doki Literature Club teaches you poetry.
Okay, but there's also other things that game teaches you about, like the effects of psychological issues,
malnutrition,
yeah,
and depression.
Also, I think video games can also I mean, few of them, not all of them are focused on psychological issues like Doki Doki is.
Well, I mean,
and
Celeste is a big psychological component.
But I mean things. Ow. Sorry, I was trying. Anyway, I think that like video games do something that many parents, not your guys' parents specifically, but many parents don't know how to talk to their kids about mental health issues. Because it's not something has been talked about in previous generations.
Yeah.
But video games and other forms of media, but video games especially, because you are in control of the character, teach you what mental illness or mental health issues can present as. Like, Doki Doki is perhaps not the best example, but in an extreme sense, it is. Like, if you were to take the most exaggerated of all of the mental health issues that those girls have, it would be, and boil them down to their core, like, you would be able to you would be able to understand what was happening. And like Celeste, like you said, and as we discussed a couple episodes ago, like Celeste mostly metaphorically, but sometimes outright deals with mental illness and image issues and being able to accept yourself as you are, even if you don't like all the parts of you that exist. And I think that's huge for kids to be able to see that and to say, this isn't bad. Like, this is not bad. This is not wrong. This is not like the way that, my friend is feeling, or the way that my mom is feeling, or the way that I am feeling isn't something I need to feel bad about. It's something that other people feel, and that like a character in a big video game feels. Because like kids are much more likely to talk about something if it's in the media that they consume. So like I think that video games are doing a huge amount for like being able to talk about stuff like that. Like, I think that's hugely underrated. But also a lot of parents don't know how to talk to their kids about it. So like maybe they would rather get video games don't glorify it, which they don't. But how would you know if you don't play video games? So
yeah. I just thought of another sort of big lesson that I was just thinking of another story that taught like a huge lesson. And it's a very, extreme example of this, but parental love and that sort of the amount that a father or mother will go through to protect their kids. And I'm talking none other than Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Conviction.
oh,
I am dead fucking serious.
No, I
At
know
the
you are.
beginning of the game, Sam Fisher, a retired spy, gets a call saying, "Hey, we kidnapped your daughter." And then he proceeds to fucking take down pretty much the United States government to save his daughter.
And does.
I don't know this.
And he does. Pretty much this old retired spy got out of retirement for the sole purpose of saving his daughter. And that is a moving story. It was violent, and it was a very badass story. But the whole premise was this hardened assassin did everything that he could to make sure that his daughter was okay.
Yeah.
And that's a great story. Oh my God, Splinter Cell Conviction will always hold a special place in my heart for not just the gameplay, but the story involved. It was so good. Oh my God.
I know it's a meme now. But what is the game with the guy and his son? The son's name is Sean. What's
Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
Yes, that is also another game about parental love and unconditional.
I just wanted to bring it up so that somebody would yell Sean, but also like that's Is he looking for his son?
Yes,
or like
his son was kidnapped by a serial killer.
Oh.
Yes, right after his first son got hit by a truck.
Chuck could.
Oh.
Sorry.
He got isekai'd. So we know he's okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's horrible.
But it's true.
But then like I'm just scrolling through my Steam library. Like
Same.
Like Into the Breach is a game entirely about damage mitigation. What can I get away with right now? What is the order of operations to mitigate damage in this moment? And that's an important skill. Learning how to what are the order of operations that I need to do to have the most positive outcome? Because oftentimes in Into the Breach, you're not gonna get a perfect run. You're not gonna be in a perfect situation. Sometimes you're just screwed. And the goal is to make the best out of a bad situation, which is an important skill to have.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about Jedi Fallen Order, but not enough to spoil anything.
Okay, because I do want to play it.
Yes. I'm very happy that game companies are now stepping back and going back into that single player experience, more story story-driven experience. Sadly, I'm the type of person who can't sit down and play story-driven games for too long without getting bored. It's not the game's fault. It's just my constant twitching nerves to play a fighting game overruns my mind every 30 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Story games are hard for me to play because I need something to do constantly. But Jedi Fallen Order was a fantastic game, and if you have the chance, please pick it up. It is brilliant game.
Yeah.
What I loved so much about it was that it was mainly about a story of overcoming your own fears. And not just being like afraid of heights, but it's about being afraid of yourself.
Yeah.
That's honestly one of the most terrifying things. You can be afraid of the dark, or you can be afraid of heights, or you can be afraid of spiders. But one of the scariest feelings is when you're scared of yourself. Because that you can run away from spiders. You can turn on lights to get away from the dark, but you're stuck with you.
Yeah.
And if you can't get away from you, there's a problem. If you're afraid of yourself, you're stuck in that constant state of fear of what you're going to do, what you're going to think, or what you're going to say. And Fallen Order really hits hard with that because some of the characters are afraid of themselves and what they can become or what they're becoming, and how they get through that as a community is very, very moving, and it's a very good story.
Yeah.
So please play it. It's so good, and I've been trying to shove it down Gio's throat. I hope he hears me from across the street. Play the game!
I can hear you from right here. I'm just going to quickly shotgun some off as I'm scrolling through my library. Left 4 Dead's, both 1 and 2. Team-based strategy. You can carry 1 throwable item, 1 extra healing item, your med pack, and 2 weapons. You're not going to make it out by yourself. Resource management. Dead Spaces 1 through 3. If you piss away all your stuff at the beginning, you're gonna die. You're gonna die so quickly.
And a lot, and frequently.
And a lot and frequently. You have to be conservative. You have to manage your stuff. Another one. But we were talking about this earlier. Portal. Spatial reasoning.
Yeah. Oh my god, Portal was so hard for me. Because in the beginning, I got, but like just the.
But yeah, but it also is about problem
especially
solving.
When it got fast, like oh my god, my spatial awareness is so.
Yeah, but
anyway,
it was good for you to experience.
But,
that.
yes, yeah, and it helped me with other things. I think.
Yeah, and problem solving,
stuff like
puzzle solving,
stuff like
thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
Stuff like Gears of War and the Walking Dead saga, how Bond is almost stronger than blood in most cases. Like, not family, but they're definitely feeling it. Like, the relationship between, like, Marcus Phoenix and his squad and Clementine and Lee is so intense, and it's so important to see that.
Yeah.
Another just shotgun off is Star Wars Republic Commando.
Yeah.
First of all, just like basic reasoning skills. I put my guys behind cover, they will die less. But also the overarching story of, you know, you're part of this small team. Like, you get very, very attached to these group of soldiers that you were literally born with. And you could just keep going. I could probably go all night.
Well, okay, this is gonna be a little weird, but I think something like Borderlands.
I was just about to say Borderlands.
Where really?
Yeah.
I think Borderlands, for a couple of reasons that we've already talked about. One, it does teach you resource management. Because it's not infinite ammo. You do eventually run. And you have to know the different kinds of ammo, what will work with which gun, against which armor, against which
human or
Machine.
not machine. Yeah. And I mean, you have to know, but I think also, I mean, you have to know those logistics, but also the game builds it up so that you absolutely hate Jack at the end. Like, by the time you get there, you absolutely hate him. But the whole, like, at least for me, the thing with his daughter, like, that was rough for me.
Yeah.
I was
It
like,
was rough for everybody.
Like,
No, it wasn't just you.
well,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I don't know.
Like, it was a
Angel
roller
was
coaster
hard.
because you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
because he's a
Angel's
horrible
helping me. Well, first of all, it's like, oh, Angel's helping me. Great. Then you're like, oh, Angel lied to me. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute. Angel just betrayed Jack to save me, and now she's dead. And you're just like, oh, I'm feeling too many
And
emotions.
then 2 seconds later, Roland dies.
And then literally
Yeah,
like 3
oh,
seconds later, Roland
God.
dies.
Roland dies.
Well,
and
and
it's
then-
like, stop! Stop!
So
And you
Kelly-
watch, not only does
Kelly-
that happen to you, but it happens to Lilith. And you're just
Yeah.
like,
And then Tiny Tina's campaign. Oh, my god.
So
Yeah.
precious.
and I
Tiny
think, like,
Tina's
as
campaign.
weird and nutty and insane as Borderlands is and is designed to be, they make it so weirdly in a twisted way, like, you really feel for the characters that are the most fucked up.
See, but then,
Like-
Kelly, do you care about spoilers for the pre-sequel?
I
never finished Borderlands 2. So.
Okay, well, do you care about spoilers?
No, I don't care.
Okay, so the story of the pre-sequel actually follows the story of Handsome Jack a couple years prior to the story of Borderlands 2.
Oh, gotcha.
And what ends up happening is you follow the story of Jack, and he's a pretty normal guy, and you're like, wait a minute, isn't he supposed to be like
Yeah, he's
insane?
actually a really nice
Yeah.
guy
And
too.
so what happens is about halfway through the campaign, Jack makes a questionable decision. He decides he doesn't want information getting out. So rather than letting any of the scientists live, he kills them because he's running an insertion. And so tactically, that was a good choice. But Roland and the other people thought he was he crossed a line. But in watching that happen in the game, you realize that Jack isn't necessarily a bad guy from this perspective, the perspective you play as in the pre-sequel. But from the perspective of Borderlands 2, he's definitely fucking evil, which makes this
Well, that's also because he went fucking insane because of the ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a mix.
I think
The ending of the pre-sequel definitely made him fucking lose his marbles, but that was also because
of the heroes, because of the Vault Hunters. It was the Vault Hunters' fault that Jack lost his mind. So you start questioning who's actually the bad guy in a game that has no right being as deep as it is.
Yeah, and
With
like
a game.
like we all know, like it's kind of the same thing with the rise in like retelling of old fairy tales from the villains' perspective, like Wicked. Like,
Yeah.
have you guys ever seen Wicked?
yes.
Okay. I read the book and then I saw the play.
I saw the musical first.
Oh, I didn't. To be honest, I thought they were different things. Like, it did not track with me as a child that like Wicked. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I was probably too young to read Wicked when I read it, because it's very much more adult than I thought it would be. But what it does, both
Nick,
the musical
are you
and
getting Discord
and
notifications?
me.
Is someone getting Discord notifications because it's coming through your mic?
Not. Is it this?
No, it's definitely 100% a Discord notification.
Not me.
That wasn't me.
Yeah. Are you getting Discord notifications?
100% am not.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think that like that perspective of like suddenly having a changed perspective thrust on you, like it really forces you to like that's like jumping to, so you can jump to conclusions, you can also jump to perspectives.
Like, and that's because of many different factors, but also like the same thing, like so many people in real life will jump to conclusions about others and then suddenly have to change those conclusions. Like, so many people view the world with a certain perspective, and something will happen that dramatically forces them to change that perspective. And like, that was something that I thought that Borderlands did really well. Was, oh shit, like I still hate him, he still seems crazy, but like, you know why you hate him, and you know why they created him to be hated, and you know why he is insane. You know, like, they make it uncomfortably understandable.
We've been recording for an hour. It honestly hasn't felt that long.
Can I say one more thing?
We don't have to be
Deep
done.
silence for a second, and I was
We
like,
don't have to be done.
There's
we're
just
good.
another set of skills that we kind of didn't mention. That I was looking through my Steam library. You can make the argument that, yeah, fine, you can learn hand-eye coordination. Fine. You can learn basic spatial reasoning. But some idiot will say, how does this apply to real life? Let me give you the Civilization games. Let's talk
yeah.
about business. Let's talk about
Civ.
let's talk about public viewing. Let's talk about how what personal relations with other countries. I played Stellaris with we talked about Stellaris on my first podcast and how I went on a genocidal raid, but that's beyond the point. Stellaris is a game about galactic civilizations. Your whole objective is to pretty much run a galactic business, gain money, keep your population happy, while also making sure that your empire is within good relations with your neighboring empires, because it is pretty much on the verge of war 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Much like real life. So these games aren't just about, learning bodily functions and ways to improve that. It's also about politics. Games can go heavy into how politics and how business function and how business models should work and how to resource manage, like going back to
and
StarCraft.
also,
But
like you were saying, public view. Like, if your public does not like you, or if people do not like the face of your business, you're gonna lose. You're gonna go out of business. You need to keep up a public face. And like, similar to Stellaris, Frostpunk has a whole system built around the public's view of you, the commander. And you can use propaganda, and like, propaganda's bad and the game tells you it's bad and you feel bad, but you can use propaganda to increase your standing. Like, you can just pretty much shoot paper out of the silo and say, look, we're so good, we have paper and we're spitting it out at you. But like, that's a huge life lesson.
Yeah.
About keeping up images, like, not only personally, but if you're running a business or a part of a business. If you're wearing like a Target uniform and you start beating up people are going to be like, Target employees are insane, which doesn't look good for the business.
If you're elected to a high office and start doing absolutely insane things with absolutely no precedence for such, people are going to think you're absolutely nuts and should not be in office. Like,
yeah, honestly, we could analyze pretty much every single game in my library down to some standing in terms of importance.
Yeah.
Every single one. Aside from a couple that are just kind of memes. Like, I'm not certain where Uno stands in the morality spectrum.
Uno teaches you
about backstabbing,
self-defense,
combat skills,
and betrayal.
Backstabbing, betrayal. It's an emotional roller coaster, and also it's just good fun. Like, it's one of those things where it's
Uno teaches you how to deal with breakups.
Nice.
Uh,
But yeah, an argument can be made for every single one of these games.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're listening to this and anyone ever makes the argument that video games are somehow less significant than any other media, fuck them. First of all, second of all, show them this podcast, and we'll prove them wrong. We got you.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I assume at some point we'll go more into the like video games cause violence or whatever, and like that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's a whole.
And like, if you are looking for that here, you won't find it. But, but I think like people spend a lot of time saying how video games are useless and video games waste so much time, but they are not the people. Like, they don't ask the people who play. They never ask the people they play. They ask the people on the periphery.
Yeah.
You know. I know this is jumping topics, but I do have a book that I have to talk about.
Well, first, are we done? Have we made our point? Is there anything else?
I mean, I don't have anything else. Yeah.
So just to recap.
Yeah.
Emotionally, so much significance can come from video games. In terms of lessons that can be taught, those come from video games. Skills to be learned and fun to be had.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question at all. If you argue against this at all, you're wrong. I don't care. You can fight me IRL. You're wrong. Because video games are so much more than just chainsaw machine guns. And jump scares and face McShooties and platforming or whatever, literally whatever you want. There's so much more than that. I don't know. He hasn't walked in.
I thought I heard him in the background.
Anyway.
Yeah. I agree.
Any last thoughts from you, Nick?
I know it probably seems very biased from people who have literally grown up playing video games their entire lives.
But Kelly hasn't.
But
yeah,
yes, but again,
several years.
It could make you can make the argument that what we're saying is very biased because of our positive experiences from it, where other people may not have as much positive experience. However, please listen to the majority of the people who grew up with video games have a positive outcome with their experiences. Every person who I've played video games with have some sort of funny or emotional or angry or just some attachment to a video game that left an impression on them that have held with them for time. You'll get the few people who will tell you that video games are a waste of time. They've tried it and it's a male experience and it's fucking disgusting because this is the male fantasy. But you'll get the majority of people who will tell you that it was a positive influence on their, and it is very, very true in most situations.
And I just want to point, 100 years ago, we were committing women to asylums for reading novels. So I think it'll pass. I don't think video games are the one and only evil that are afflicted the youth of our age. I think every generation has its media that the previous generation swears will corrupt them and is bad for the children. I mean, Elvis was bad for the children. The Beatles were bad for the children. I think, at some point, Jane Austen was bad for the children. Harry Potter is bad for the children. Harry Potter is still a banned book. There are whole lists of banned books. Like, this is not, video games are not what is going to cause your children to talk back to you or not want to discuss things with you or, I don't know, smoke weed at water towers. Like, that's not, you can't blame video games for issues your child is having or issues that you're having. Like, I don't think the media is the source of the issue.
Like to give
Who's to
your
say? Yeah. So, this is kind of a weirdly niche book that I picked up because I thought it was enough. But I said I would do a nonfiction book this week, which is big for me because I do not read a lot of nonfiction, but I'm starting. And rather than pick something weird about medieval, I chose something weird about Victorian France. And so John Singer Sargent is a very famous painter. His paintings go for millions of dollars. And this story, this book focuses around his life leading up to and the aftermath of his painting, his famous painting of Madame X. And if you look up Madame by John Singer Sargent, it's this painting of this beautiful dark-haired woman. She's very, very pale, very, very stately, elegant, and a very defining profile of her face. And if depending on what version you see, she either has one strap of her dress completely gone. It's a one-strapped dress, or it's two straps. When it was first painted, there were two straps, but one was hanging off of her shoulder. And now we would look at that and think, oh, like it's an artistic like it's an artistic detail, like whatever. Then it was seen as a woman of society painted to look like she was about to have an affair, because the way she's looking off rather secretively away from the painter, her, and like people have painted nudes and prostitutes before. That's not new. But like a lady of society depicted in that particular manner caused such a scandal. The woman literally had to become a recluse, and John Singer Sargent almost destroyed one of the greatest artistic careers that has ever existed on the planet. And so he eventually like he paints over her strap, and he paints it back up on her arm, and then removes it altogether at some but I thought it was an absolutely fascinating look into something that I genuinely have never considered before. Like, I have heard of Madame X through a different novel that I read, but it's really fascinating. I did not know very much about artistic careers. I didn't know anything about John Singer Sargent. In fact, I thought John Singer Sargent was a composer from like this century, not this century, but like the 19th opposed to the 18th. But I found it absolutely fascinating. I highly recommend it. It's called Strapless, and it's incredibly detailed and engaging, and not at all dry and fraught with artistic jargon, as I thought it would. And so I highly recommend it. I didn't actually bring it over to my desk, so I can't tell you what the author's name is. But it's called Strapless, The Fall of Madame X, and I highly recommend it if you are at all interested in art or nonfiction biographies. So it also tells the story of the model, who is fascinating in her own right. So I highly recommend it. That's it. I done.
You're done. Excellent. Then I think that's about it.
And if you have any book recommendation, if you have a topic you would like us to discuss, or a question you want to ask about this podcast or any of the future or past.
Put in the comments.
Put it in the comments. Write us an email on our website, www.contentcreatorshaven.com.
Make sure to tell us how cool and amazing we are and how
Yes.
bad Kelly is.
What? Nick, what the fuck?
Every like goes straight towards the Kelly sucks counter.
Okay.
We're teasing.
Yeah, so we would love to hear from you. I don't want to hear from Nick anymore, but I would love to hear from you. So drop us a line, join the Discord. You can come hang out with us. Yeah.